There are two main ways that exposure techniques are used in the reduction of stress and the symptoms of anxiety. Gradual exposure is a way of slowly and systematically increasing one's exposure. So an example might be if you are apprehensive or scared of being in public, maybe you'll go to a coffee shop and sit for 5 or 15 minutes. Or if you are afraid to go outside, maybe you'll make a goal to go to the mailbox and back 3 times a day. And then slowly, what you'll do is you'll expand the duration, the time, the intensity of that trigger, the symptom. And over time, what will end up happening is you'll get a huge experience bank of times in which you were interacting with those stressors or problems and not have anything untoward happen. The other way of using exposure techniques in dealing with anxiety is to simply flood yourself with the stressor. So if you are afraid to get on an elevator, you will get on the elevator and you'll stay there until you're not afraid anymore. Or if you're afraid to talk to people, you're going to go up and talk to 100 people and keep going until you're not afraid to talk to people anymore. So in these ways, gradual exposure and flooding, you're able to in some way come to terms with the fear that you're having. The way that these work are basically 2 categories. The first category is that you're beginning to become confident in your ability to handle the situation. Whatever the stress is, or the trigger is, you're becoming to have a feeling that instead of being fearful, that you have control or mastery of the situation, or maybe yourself in that situation, whatever the case may be. And the other category of things that you're doing is that you're building a library of times in which you were exposed to that stressor or that trigger of anxiety and you were okay. So you're kind of you're doing 2 things in that case. You're rewriting some of that emotional language that is embedded whenever you had that interaction in the past, and also you're providing a library of experiences that aren't as laden with stress and anxiety and worry, fear as before. And so the idea of combining the mastery of a situation or ourselves in a situation and the rewriting the emotional content behind that, what you're really doing there is calibrating your responses to a specific situation. So in other words, you're trying to not necessarily be fearless or overcome your fear per se, but more likely you're being better able to judge situations that should be fearful to you. So in other words, it's okay to be a little worried that you're not going to pass a test. The thing is, what do you do then? Do you continue to worry about it? Do you then work yourself up that you're not going to be competent to do a task or to complete the test appropriately? Exposure is a great way to begin managing your symptoms of anxiety. However, sometimes it's just not enough, or maybe you're past that point and you need to find a way to put the brakes on some of the physical and emotional experiences that you're having. So that way you can maybe begin working again on that stress tolerance through gradual exposure or flooding. So what I'd like to talk about now is distress tolerance, ways in which you can reduce some of that stress anxiety. So the first way we've already talked about could be some deep breathing. Maybe you're not terribly stressed, you've checked in with yourself and you realize that you're a little bit stressed. Maybe doing a couple rounds of 10-second breaths would be a great way to take a pause and reduce. Another way that might be easy to do is to listen to some music or some other type of distraction technique. Drawing, writing, reading. There may come a time in which the deep breathing or whatever distraction technique that you're using, like coloring or walking, is just by itself not enough to help reduce the stress, anxiety, and those feelings and thoughts that you're having. When it comes to stress tolerance, one of the best methods I've heard that encompasses pretty much every other type of technique is called TIP. TIP stands for temperature, intensity, and progressive breathing or muscle relaxation. Now, temperature refers to either increasing or decreasing the temperature you're sensing. You take an ice cube and you hold it in your hand, and then you really focus on the sensation, the sharp pain, how the water is dripping out of your hand, which finger is more cold than the others, as much information as you can gather from the sensation of holding the ice cube. The reason why I like this is that it's pretty simple, and you can make it somewhat discreet as well. So if you're out and you have these feelings of anxiety or stress or whatever might happen, you grab this ice cube and you combine it with the progressive breathing or the diaphragmatic breathing we discussed earlier. You're doing a lot of things there. You're making your mind work a lot about how the temperature is, how you're breathing, relaxing your breathing. You're giving your mind a lot of things to do instead of worrying. And in this way, you can start running interference and try to put the brakes on the emotions and thoughts that you're experiencing. As with the ice cube, there are many ways to change one's temperature. So if it's really hot outside, maybe go inside in the air-conditioned, or maybe splash some cold water on your face. Or if you're cold, maybe get out and do some jogging or run around. So intensity deals with the level of activity that you're currently doing. If you're laying in bed and you're ruminating, you're thinking over and over about things, you're sitting in the chair and you're actively worrying about something, change the intensity. Get up and do something. Pace the floor 10 times, or go for a run, go work out. Do something to change the level of intensity that you're currently doing. Progressive breathing and muscle relaxation refers back to that body scanning that we're doing. And sometimes that's enough to kind of bring down some of that anxiety. Some people, when they begin having anxiety and panic attacks, they breathe very, very shallowly. And that makes the body think it's suffocating. So sometimes just by changing our breath pattern, we're able to reduce automatically some of our symptoms of anxiety. In addition to progressive breathing, there could be also progressive relaxation. The muscle relaxation is the same as when we talked about earlier when we talked about body scanning. You're actively tuning back into your body and reminding your body to relax. And if you've had a practice in body scanning and doing the standing meditation, you might be able to call back to that earlier conditioning to have your body relax more. Because like with the progressive breathing, when people are experiencing high levels of anxiety, their body begins tensing up, and reducing some of that might help the brain remember that it's safe and it's okay. But the biggest part is to tune back into your body and remember what's actually going on. So temperature, intensity, and progressive breathing and muscle relaxation. It's best if you can incorporate all of these together at the same time. That way, your body, your mind has a lot to work with and a lot to do instead of whatever else you're worrying about or experiencing. One of the ways that you can begin working on and conditioning this is, for instance, if you take a hot shower, you begin working on your progressive body scan and relaxation, and then slowly turn the water to cold. And then as you do that, and as you begin feeling that very unpleasant feeling that you want to pull away from the cold water, you stay there and you work on your breathing and you work on relaxing the body. And you may only get 5 or 10 seconds in cold water, and that's okay. Gradually increase that time to maybe 30 or 40 seconds of cold water. You're training your mind that you can be in control in an unpleasant situation. And you're also training your body to relax when you tell it to. And part of that trigger is going to be guided by your breath. So every time you focus in on how you're breathing and relaxing your body, you're also conditioning your body to relax when you tell it to remind yourself that you have control in these uncomfortable situations. And this is a very useful way in which to begin incorporating some of these methods. But it could also just be as simple as going for a run and practicing your deep breathing, paying attention to your posture and your cadence and your strike pattern as you run. So there are many ways to incorporate these stress tolerance tactics, and hopefully this concept is useful and meaningful to you.